Ladies and gentlemen, have you any idea what a conference navigator is? Yeah, me neither. So we're going to figure this out as we go along, all right? So there's a few things which I propose to do over the course of the day. One is I propose to tell you stories, right? There's always a role for a storyteller, and sometimes it's good to figure out what are we doing here, what's going on, what is it that we're trying to accomplish. There's another role which I'll play, and that is that of light entertainment. I think that's also helpful every once in a while. But there's a third role which I want to throw at you. It's a role of asking awkward questions. I mean, we all have awkward questions. We want to figure out, what are we doing here? I mean, here we are in yet another forum, yet another conference. And the topics seem to be topics that we've encountered before. Why? Why are we addressing it this time? What's going to happen differently? I mean, let's think about this. Let me start by telling you a little bit the story of this conference, the story of this forum. When the organizers of this forum sat down to say, look, what are the big issues that face people who are likely to attend this session? They came out with a set of issues which seem very familiar, to be honest, right? Everybody is struggling with globalization. And look, the impact of globalization is not just in business, it's in all sorts of things, right? It's in geopolitics, it's in terror, it's all these sorts of things. It's impacting us. But globalization still ends up being a dominant topic which is grabbing our attention. It has an impact in a variety of ways, and one of the important ways in which it has an impact is in forcing us, if you like, to deal with diversity. It becomes not just a theoretical issue, but it becomes a real issue. It's something that we have to manage in order to even negotiate our own lives, our own careers, right? So the challenge being globalization, the impact it has on us being diversity, how do we deal with this? Well, the answers are not new again. The answers seem to be answers that are centered around we need to be more innovative in the way in which we deal with our worlds, we deal with our organizations, and we need more entrepreneurs, people who are willing to strike out from the ways in which these large established companies seem to work. That's the story of this conference. And to be honest, it's a story we've heard before, and it's a story we've been speaking about for quite a while. What makes this interesting then? And I was thinking about that, and I don't know if you were, as you were listening, those of you who were privileged enough to listen to Henri-Claude de Bettigny yesterday, or listen to Ilian this morning, when they talk about what is the role of business. And as I was thinking of that, the question that I wanted to ask this room is this conference, is this forum, is it about them? You know, business, government, them. Or is it about us? Is that the conversation that we need to have? In other words, when we talk about globalization and the impact of globalization and so on, are we really talking about what does it mean for us? I mean, of course, we know the impact it has on us, but what's my role? What's my responsibility? I put a hypothesis to you, ladies and gentlemen. This conference, this forum, has the opportunity, as indeed do a lot of other similar conferences and forums, to be different. Different in a way in which we engage, we as a group, as a collective, we engage with the issues that are in front of us, not at a theoretical level, not at an abstract level, but at a personal level, in a way in which they mean something to us. I put it to you that if we can do that, then the experience will be a very different experience from other experiences that we might have. And I put it to you that a lot of value lies in our ability to do that. So let me just leave that as my starting question for us as we start off this wonderful day. Really wonderful weather, as Ilian said. We're competing with some gorgeous weather outside, and that's the reason why they closed the curtains, you understand. It's much safer that way. But let me start off with that thought. Let me leave that thought with you. How can we make this personal? There will be opportunities over the course of the day to engage with the speakers, to engage with the issues, to engage during breaks. But I really think it's that engagement that's going to make this forum special, right? It's a privilege to stand here in front of you, and I look forward to engaging with you over the course of the day. But now let me start off and introduce our first speaker of the day. It was a privilege for me to meet this gentleman at the World Economic Forum a few years ago and to listen to him. Professor Komiyama is thinking about the issues that he will speak of Again, I suspect not at a theoretical or a conceptual level, but at a very personal level, at a level where we talk about what is the world that we're going to leave behind for future generations? What is our responsibility for that, for engaging and making sure that we leave behind the kind of world that we would like to see in our own children's and our grandchildren's lives? And so when we talk about globalization, it's impossible to speak of the subject without addressing the question of how can globalization be sustainable? Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming for the first keynote of the day, Professor Hiroshi Komiyama, Chairman of the Mitsubishi Research Institute and former Dean of Tokyo University.
Good morning. That's easier. Thank you, Narayan, for a very good introduction. My talk today will contain 4 points. First one is that we live in the very turning point of our civilization, which will influence strongly the businesses. And the second is, what was Japan until now? And I think in this context of changing world, we need new vision, which I propose as a platinum society. And finally, I will show what kind of actions I'm doing for myself. This is the per capita GDP of 10 centuries. And that was normalized to the then world average GDP. So, oh no. It doesn't work. Okay. 3, 4. Can I have a pointer? Oh, okay, sorry. These are developed countries, including England, European countries, Japan. And 3 to 4 means the per capita GDP of developed countries about 3 to 4 times the world average. And consider the 1,000 years ago, almost the same. This means most of the industry was agriculture, or most businesses are agriculture. Close to 100% were farmers. And people eat almost equally. And so there were no difference of richness between countries. Industrial revolution changed the situation. For example, the 1 person of 200 persons works for producing crops. Then we can feed to all the people in the world. And so in agriculture, to produce crops, productivity increased 200 times almost. So this industrial revolution created developed countries in the 20th century and now. And so the developed countries include 3 continents: Europe and North America, Australia. And what happened to the other continents? They became colonies: Africa, South America, and Asian countries. So industrial revolution created developed countries and colonies. But look the very recent decade, then it sharply decreases because the average world per capita GDP increased very rapidly. I showed only China and India. So the per capita GDP is narrowing now. We live in this situation. Why they became richer now? Because they started industry. So this means saturation of industrial revolution occur in the finite earth. Now, this is one point. Second is, this is Japan. Japan is a very unique country. Until 250 years, until late 18th, Japan closed our country to outside. So we didn't do any industrial revolution, but we could catch up with the industrial revolution very quick. So we could avoid being colonized and join the developed countries. Korea followed us, but it is 100 years from Japanese catching up. So Japan is a unique country in this sense. First is saturation of industrial revolution. Second is lifespan. You may be surprised, I did also. In 1900, at the start of the 20th century, our average lifespan, world average lifespan was 31 years old. Most of them sitting here died already. Huh? But now, the world average lifespan exceeded 70 already. In the developed countries, almost 80. In Japan, 83. The maximum lifespan of a human will be 120, science says. Then saturation of lifespan is occurring now in only 100 years, from 24 or 31 to 70. Saturation of lifespan is another point of the changing world. What the result of industrial revolution? It's a saturation of artifacts. This shows the saturation of cars. Now in Japan, 58 million cars are running. I divided it by population, 126 million. It makes 0.45. 0.5 means one car is possessed by two persons. So saturation occurs at the point of the rate of one car per two persons. 10 years ago, Japanese car number was 58 million, and now 58 million. Number is the same. How many annual car sales? Very simple. Lifespan of a car is 12 years now in Japan. So divide 58 million by 12 years makes 4.9 million. This is the car sales, saturated. This is the very background of low growth rate of economy, 1% or something, of developed countries. For every artifact, this happens. Refrigerators, television set, or something like that. So when I was at school, okay, I have only 30 minutes. Okay. So I showed China. It's very natural. These countries, motor companies, go to the developing countries. But the developing rate of developing countries is very rapid. We should notice. In 2007, only 2 cars were possessed by 100 persons, but now 10 cars. If China will follow the route of UK, France, Germany, Japan, then within 7 years, saturation of car market in China will occur. So saturation is a keyword of us. And then what happened to Japan? This is not the pictures of China. This is Japan, but 1960s, half century ago, what happened to this area? This is the present picture. This bay is very famous in Kita-Kyushu area. This is now, people can swim. This is, we proud of that. We overcame pollution. This is Sumida River running downtown Tokyo. It was dirty and smelled heavily. But it was 1967 when I happened to graduate from the university. It was like that. This is the present, Sumida River. You can enjoy tempura and sashimi with warm sake. It's a different experience from the cruising of Seine. I prefer this. You can enjoy it. So, another point is the ecology. Ayu, which is the name of a fish. This can live only in very clean water. Millions of schools of ayu now return to Sumida River. The water quality is much better than Thames or the Seine. This is Japan. I am proud of that. Another point is that Japan overcame the energy crisis. Probably some of you remember. In 1973, first energy crisis happened. 1979, I think, second oil shock. During these 6-7 years, oil prices hiked to 10 times or 20 times or even 30 times. So it heavily attacked the world businesses. In particular, Japan was very vulnerable because we depended on imported cheap oil for industry. But we overcame the difficulty. This is the manufacturing companies improved the energy efficiency. This is the case of cement production. They decreased to half. This is the data of about 2000, 15 years ago. At that time, the United States cement companies consumed 1.7 times to produce same amount of cement. And the others are like this. So Japan changed the big pinch to chance, opportunities. So this is the second point. So I will make the long history of 2,000 years of Japan into a few minutes. So very rough. But the point is, before we close our country to outside, Japan was one of the peaks, cultural or civilization peaks in the world. Why? It is because there are, in Eurasia continent, there are only 2 parts which have not been invaded and destroyed by the very fierce troops of Turkish or Mongolians and so on. One is the Far East, Japan. Another is the Far West, England, France, and Germany. This is not my opinion, but the very famous cultural anthropologist Umesao Tadao. I feel he's right. And anyway, before closing, this is 1600 years, one of the peaks. But we closed the country. During we closed, Industrial Revolution happened in Europe. So we have some difficulty being colonized. But we could avoid it. During that time, Japanese culture developed very spiritually or sophisticatedly. Then, for example, the tempura sushi or hot warm sake started in the period of Edo, in this period. And the tea drinking, we made it the tea ceremony, not tea parties, but very sophisticated. Anyway, after Meiji Restoration, we achieved high economic growth, and we answered pollution issues, answered the energy crisis, and in 1950s, the Japanese lifespan was the shortest among the developed countries. But in 1970, from 50 to 70, we experienced very high economic growth. Our lifespan became world longest. In that sense, Japan succeeded in civilization. Like the other developed countries, civilization succeeded. We became rich in materially, and we solved environmental issues with respect to pollution and energy crisis, and we achieved longevity. Our present issues, most difficult present issues, are the result of the success of civilization. The global climate change or aged society issue are good examples. Consider the average lifespan of 31 years old. Why we need to be conscious about longevity, aged society? So the present problem, present challenges are the results of the success of civilization. That is my point. So what happened to the people in this succeeded? Now the majority of the regular citizens in developed countries have food, clothing, shelter, mobility, information, and longevity. This was not so 50 years ago. These were monopolized by only a small portion of the people. Most of the people couldn't eat well. That is the reason why infant mortality are so big. And the average lifespan was 24, 25 years old in Greek days and Roman days and Mediterranean days, medieval days. But quickly, Wikipedia, historical people whom I know by name lived long. For example, Julius Caesar was assassinated at 56 years old. Many Greek academicians lived long. Plato died at 83 years old, but I doubt the statistics. But anyway, I clicked 30 people. All of them lived long, like us. So most of the people couldn't eat. So average lifespan was very short. So now the average lifespan is exceeded to 70 years old worldwide. This means most of the people can eat. So of course, but malnutrition is a big issue in some areas of the world. But the majority of the people can eat. This is a very new feature of our civilization. So we need to start from food, clothing, shelter, mobility, information, and longevity are enjoyed by majority of the people. And very importantly, the developing rate of developing countries are very rapid, much rapider than most of the people are thinking. This is the point. So what do we want under this satisfaction or saturation of materials? This is the very basic question of businesses, I believe. So quality of life, I think, together with quantity. That is what we should aim at. Then what is the quality that we desire? This should be thought of deeply. So I defined that kind of society, one rank higher than the present society in quality. It's platinum society. Platinum network I started by the local governments of 130 and business people of about 70. Now we are discussing what kind of quality we desire. Then one is ecology, resources, participation, job opportunities, richness in arts, culture, sports, as well as materially. So GDP is important, but one of the many importances. This is the 1 point key question. GDP is not the only indicator of our happiness, of course. So then what should we do? I will show some examples. This is the energy issue. I showed this one. Energy efficiency is a key issue, one. So this is 1960s. Manufacturing occupied 66% of the energy consumption. But now it's different. Daily life, I defined daily life, transport, business. These are offices, like here. Offices and houses, they consume close to 2/3 of the energy consumption. And possibility to improve the efficiency in this area is huge. This is the correct plot of energy consumption of a car. Plot the reciprocal of fuel value. How many liters of gasoline is consumed to run 1 kilometer? Against vehicle weight. This is the correct plot. If the technology is the same, this makes a straight line passing the origin. They are. These red circles are United States, GM and Ford, Volkswagen, and so on. And the blues are Japanese cars, Toyota, Honda, and everything. I plotted all the data from the catalog. So at the same weight, 20% difference of cars. This is the superior technology from gasoline to wheel of Japanese companies by Japan. And hybrid cars consume one, and electric and fuel cell cars further half. So in 2050s, Toyota declared 90% of cars will be occupied by these. Then one car consumes 1/4 the present, and car will become lighter and lighter. Then probably the same size the car will consume half. Then 1/8, 8 times energy improvement will occur. Toyota declared already 2 weeks ago. That is very important. So this is my challenge. It is rather famous in Japan as a Komiyama eco house. I replaced my house 10 years ago, 13 years ago. At that time, I did some important saving energy technologies. Then my house is almost the same. My house is equipped with solar panel. The electricity production equals the consumption of electricity. So this is zero house. So, and refundable, I needed some initial investment, but the refundable in 12 years. This is 13-year-old. I've already recovered my initial investment. This is not good for your business sense, 12 years. But it's good enough for me, because what should we do? I will get some banks. Banks don't pay any interest. So it's much better to invest in these. But anyway, the potential is huge. This is the half-century Japanese trend of GDP, energy, and electricity. Consider saturation of artifact occurs. Number of houses are constant. Number of cars are constant. Then why energy will increase? Stupid. It started to decrease. This is important. Energy consumption has already started to decrease. This is a very important point. I will replot these data to this. This is the same data, but I made as standard 1973 when energy crisis happened and the energy efficiency improvement in manufacturing started. Then until 1973, GDP energy was same trend. You say the GDP some value is unity. Then so this is the industrial age, because if the steel companies produces double, then the GDP becomes double, and energy consumption becomes double, such kind. But after that, this is 2 trillion yen, 2 trillion of GDP. And after 12 years, it became 3.2 trillion. But the energy consumption didn't increase at all because of energy efficiency improvement. So this is the industry and efficiency improvement age. After that, GDP increased due mostly to service businesses. Service business consumes 1/3 energy to earn 1 GDP compared to that of manufacturing industry. So energy increase is much smaller than GDP increase. So, so this is the day of service and efficiency improvement day. Now we are here. What I have long been arguing. energy will start to decrease. I have long been arguing. It's occurred now. This is energy. Compare, energy increased only 25% from 2 trillion to 5 trillion. This is due to energy efficiency improvement, a very important point. This is the hope of our civilization. Saturation of artifacts and energy efficiency improvement is the hope with respect to sustainability of the earth. This is United States, almost the same as Japan. GDP increases. Energy started to decrease. This is electricity, almost same. This is China. China is still growing. I don't know the very recent analysis. They say 50% have already been occupied by service industry. But I suspect because still energy, GDP goes simultaneously. I don't know. We need analysis. So our vision of Japan is self-sufficiency of energy. In 2050, Japan will, like this, 55% decrease of energy consumption. Of course, GDP will increase. And we will supply these by renewable energy. It's very reasonable. Very reasonable. We have been analyzing what will be the cost of renewable energies very precisely. And then, now it is 16 yen per kilowatt hour. It should be compared to 14. Now Japanese, sorry, I can't speak English quick. And so Japanese will be allowed. then I can make my talk short. But anyway, 16 can be compared to 14. Very close, almost same now. 60 years ago, it was 200. So people could say renewable is good, but it's costly. But now it's not. And in 2030, it will become 6 yen, half of the present cost of the energy production. So I am almost sure in the very near future, renewable will occupy the energy supply. So another is the urban mines. This is also important. Toyota declared 2 weeks ago they will produce cars from scrapped cars. This is very reasonable. Consider the situation of artifact saturation. We will scrap old ones, old artifacts, and build a new one. The contents are same. So all the cars contain all the materials. So, and which is better, to use natural mines or urban mines? Urban mines is better because iron ore is iron oxygen, oxidized because of the presence of oxygen in the atmosphere. So we need to remove oxygen from iron ore. But the scraps is iron. So we can just melt. Which is bigger, melting energy or removing oxygen energy? Removing oxygen energy is 27 times bigger. In the case of aluminum, 83 times. So urban mines consumes less energy than natural mines. Do not invest on natural mines anymore.
Komiyama-san, Can I ask you to conclude, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You may be interested, but I will skip.
Of course, of course.
This is the aged society. Eh? Okay. Very important for aged society issue. As well as our brain is alive, we can be independent. This is a message. When brain arrives, brain neurons emit electric pulses. Electricity flowed through nerves, then back to the neuron. We have many electric circuits. And so we can do that. Detect this current. Then we know I wish to do something. Then motor rotates. This is the very basic concept. This robot detects electric current. Very tiny electric current leaks to the skin. This senses and motor rotates. So it can be used for rehabilitation. Learning process is accelerated. So this means as well as brain is alive, we can go to the toilet without any support of the others. This will make a very huge market, without doubt. So this is a very important area. Next is some information and ICT combined with big data. Present medicine is based on some cholera bacteria, and disease is cholera. And treatment is how to kill the cholera bacteria. This is the basic structure from the days of Pasteur or Koch. But now, most of the people, many people are suffering from back pains, atopes, depression, and so on. They are not so direct cause and diseases and treatment issues. We need big data. Then we can answer much better than present. This area will make a huge business opportunities, I believe. Okay, I will go.
Thank you.
This is academic one. I have long been proposing what I have talked today, but these were written in Japanese. Fortunately, recently, it was translated into English, published from Springer. And it's open. Open means you can download free. So it's not thick. Please read it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you.